When purchasing secondhand games, sometimes how clean a game is can affect if it'll actually work in your system, especially when it comes to cartridge-based games. Even though a game looks good on the outside, there could be underlying dirt and grime that are preventing the game from working. As someone who's been collecting cartridge-based games for a while now, even if they look good on the outside, I always open them up and give them a clean on the inside of the cartridge. I have a few new Nintendo games here, and I thought this would be a great opportunity to take you through my process of cleaning Nintendo cartridge games. So let's strap on those cleaning gloves and get stuck into it. Before we start, a quick disclaimer that sometimes no matter how clean a game is on the inside and out, there are a number of issues that can prevent a cartridge from not working. Anything from worn pins, failed chips and capacitors to loose solder joints can affect a cartridge working. This is important to know when cleaning that you are careful not to potentially damage the board by overzealous cleaning. The games that we'll be cleaning today are Final Fantasy IV Advance on GBA, Bionic Commando on NES, Battletoads on Super Nintendo, and finally Banjo-Kazooie on the Nintendo 64. All of these I use the same products to clean them, just to access their internals will require slightly different tools. When opening a GBA cartridge, you'll need a size 2 Y-tip screwdriver. For the NES, Super Nintendo and N64 you will require a game bit screwdriver. These are specialized screwdrivers to unscrew the security screws that Nintendo have used on their earlier consoles and games. These normally come in a pack with 2 different sizes, and you will need the larger of the 2 to open these cartridges. They can be picked up on eBay or Amazon for around 10 to 15 Australian dollar dues. In addition to the game bit screwdriver, N64 cartridges will also need a size 2 Phillips head screwdriver to remove the metal shielding on the inside of the cartridge. When it comes to cleaning, I use very similar products that I used in my recent GameCube controller cleaning video, which are a bottle of rubbing alcohol, Q-tips, a soft brush toothbrush, spray on furniture polish, as well as a tube of metal polish. Now that we're kitted out, let's start with cleaning GBA carts. These are probably the most simple of the 4, as they are held together by a single Y-tip screw. Simply by unscrewing the screw and gently pushing up on the cartridge will reveal the game board. The pin connectors are only on one side of the board, and to clean I just use a little dab of metal polish and a Q-tip and rub along the pins in an up and down motion just to remove any corrosion or dirt buildup. A little bit of metal polish goes a long way, so be careful not to overdo it. Once you've cleaned all the pins, use the opposite side of the Q-tip just to remove any excess polish on the pins. Next up, I just use a bit of rubbing alcohol on a Q-tip and use the same up and down motions as the metal polish. This will not only help to remove any leftover polish, but also to give it an extra clean. Once done with the pins, I just use a separate Q-tip with some rubbing alcohol to give a general light clean of the board. You can also use a soft brush toothbrush on these boards, but I tend just to use a Q-tip due to the size of the board. Once the board has been cleaned, I just give the inside of the cartridge a quick clean with the Q-tip and rubbing alcohol before placing the board back in the shell, using the plastic notches to help guide the board back into place, ensuring that the pins are facing towards the label side of the shell. Then simply place the front half of the shell back into place and gently slide up to line up the screw hole. Then it's just a matter of screwing back in the Y-tip screw. Once this is back together, I just use a bit of spray on furniture polish on a cloth and give it a gentle rub down to clean off any dirt and grime on the shell. Once this is done, we are finished. Now onto an NES cart. These carts are held together by 3 screws on the rear of the cart, or in rare instances 5 screws. You'll just use the game bit screwdriver to unscrew all the screws, and the back should be able to be lifted off from the bottom up, just being mindful of the clips at the top of the cartridge. NES carts have pins on both sides of the board. Using the metal polish and a Q-tip, like the GBA, we'll go over the pins on both sides of the board, just making sure to wipe off any excess polish. Then we'll use the rubbing alcohol and a Q-tip to clean both sides of the pins. We'll then grab our soft brush toothbrush, douse it in some rubbing alcohol, and use it to gently clean the board. Just again be careful around capacitors and the chip soldering just to avoid loosening any connections. Once this is done, I then use a Q-tip with some rubbing alcohol to clean the inside of the shell. Then we just align the board using the mold guides in the shell, making sure to put the board chip side down. Then we'll just replace the back shell, making sure to align the clips in their allocated holes. Then we'll use our game bit screwdriver to re-screw everything back together. Then finally, I just use a spray on furniture polish and a cloth to gently rub the cart and get rid of any outside dirt or easy to remove marks. Then we have ourselves a clean NES cartridge. Now onto Super Nintendo carts. To undo these, we just use our game bit screwdriver to undo the 2 screws on the front. You'll notice that I'm using a PAL cartridge as I'm in the land of Down Under.
You call that a knife? This is a knife.
That's not a knife, that's a spoon.
All right, you win. I see you've played knifey spoony before.
But the process for opening these should be the same on both USA and Japanese carts also. When the screws are released, gently lift up the front and you'll be able to pull away the front shell. Like the NES, Super Nintendo carts have pins on both sides of the board. Once we have removed the board from the shell, we'll use the metal polish and a Q-tip to go over the pins on both the front and the back. Once we have cleaned them, we'll again just use the Q-tip to wipe away any excess polish. We'll then use some rubbing alcohol and a Q-tip to re-go over the pins on both sides. Once the pins are clean, like the NES boards, I then use the soft brush toothbrush and some rubbing alcohol to gently clean the board. Again, just being gentle and mindful of any capacitors, as dislodging any of these will require a soldering fix. Once the board is clean, like the others, I just use a Q-tip and some rubbing alcohol just to remove any dirt or dust buildup on the inside of the shell. Then, just replace the board chip side down by using the mold guides to align the board into the correct position. Then we just place our front half of the shell back by aligning the clips at the top and gently lowering down. Then we just re-screw in the screws and finish it off by using the spray on furniture polish and a cloth to gently wipe over the outside of the cartridge. And finally we have the N64 cartridge. The outer shell is fairly similar to the NES and Super Nintendo by using the game bit screwdriver to unscrew the screws on the back side of the cartridge, and this time pull away from the top, being mindful of the clips at the bottom. Here's where the N64 differs the most, as we now need to remove the metal shield to access the board. We just need to use our Phillips head screwdriver to remove the screws on each side. Then with a little bit of force, just pull up the heat shield and it will come off. We then just remove the plastic dust protector on the board, which should just slide off. Then we just repeat our normal process of using the metal polish on the pins, making sure to wipe away any excess. Then finish it off by using the rubbing alcohol on the pins also. Then we'll again just use our soft brush toothbrush to lightly clean the board, being very careful on this one as there's quite a few capacitors that can be easily knocked. Then we'll just use the Q-tip on the inside of both shells. Then we just reinstall the plastic dust cover and place the board with the chip side facing the rear of the cart, using the tabs inside the shell to guide the board back into its position. This can be a little bit fiddly as the dust cover can slide about when aligning, but you should be able to get it with a bit of perseverance. Then we just replace the outer side of the heat shield by aligning the tabs at the top of the front shield and gently pushing down. You'll feel a slight snap when it catches. Again, this can be a little bit fiddly, but once it's on correctly, the screw holes will align and the heat shield will be sitting flat. Then we just replace the backside of the cartridge by aligning the tabs at the base of the cart, and then finish it up by re-screwing all of the screws. And for the final time, use our spray on furniture polish to give the cartridge a general outside clean. And then we're done with all 4 games. So that's how I clean my cartridge-based games. So this is just my process that I've used throughout the years and what I've found works best for me, but if you have any techniques or products that you use, just let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to leave a like or subscribe as it really helps the channel. Otherwise, I'll catch you in the next one.